It started on a Tuesday. Gray, bloated clouds hanging low over the sleepy town of Elmridge, and the kind of icy drizzle that seeped into your bones. Claire never liked Tuesdays. They were the middle of everything, stretched between the exhaustion of Monday and the distant hope of the weekend. But this Tuesday would change her life. She was driving home from her night shift at St. Mary's, the town's only hospital. Her fingers gripped the wheel tightly, her eyes strained in the rain-washed dark. She shouldn't have taken the back road through Pine Hollow. It was isolated, winding, and the trees pressed in like silent watchers. But it was faster, and she just wanted to get home. Then she saw him. A flash of white in the headlights. No more than 10 years old, barefoot, soaked, staggering down the middle of the road. She slammed the brakes. The car skidded, tires shrieking against the wet gravel. The boy didn't flinch. He just stood there, shivering, staring into nothing. Claire jumped out. Rain lashed her face as she ran to him. "Hey, are you okay?" she shouted over the wind. The boy didn't speak. His lips were blue, skin ashen, eyes wide and hollow. He looked like he hadn't eaten in days. She wrapped her coat around him and led him to the car. He didn't resist, didn't speak. Just followed. Inside the car the heat barely helped. He curled up on the seat like a stray animal. Claire glanced at him, concern tightening in her chest. "What's your name?" she asked softly. He turned his head. His eyes were pitch black. Claire jerked slightly, a gasp caught in her throat. But the next blink they were normal, dark brown, frightened. She told herself it was just the stress, the rain, the fatigue. "Liam," he whispered. "My name is Liam." She drove him straight to her apartment. The hospital would have called Child Protective Services, and somehow she couldn't explain why, but she didn't want to do that. Not yet. The boy needed warmth, food, safety. He slept for nearly 20 hours. No nightmares. No tossing. Just stillness. Too still. That night Claire couldn't sleep. Her apartment felt different. The air heavier. The corners darker. Shadows lingered longer than they should. She blamed it on exhaustion. The second night the sound started. First it was the hallway light flickering. Then the soft creak of footsteps outside her bedroom. She thought it might be Liam wandering around, disoriented. But when she checked, he was still curled up on the couch, sound asleep. At 3:07 a.m., she awoke to the sound of whispering. She sat up, heart thudding. It was faint, like wind through a tunnel, but the words were sharp. "You brought him back, but I am what you kept." She turned on every light in the apartment. Nothing. No one. By morning, Liam was awake and eating cereal like nothing had happened. He didn't mention anything odd. But when she looked closer, there was a scratch on his neck. Fresh. Long. Like it had been carved by a claw. "Where'd you get that, sweetheart?" she asked gently. Liam just stared at her. Then smiled. The smile didn't reach his eyes. Over the next few days, things escalated. Birds slammed into her windows. Electronics glitched. The mirrors fogged over with handprints, child-sized, but smeared from the inside. Claire searched news reports, missing child bulletins, anything that might tell her where Liam came from. There was nothing. Not a single report of a missing boy matching his description. It was like he didn't exist. One evening, she tried to take him to the police. But halfway to the station, the car died. Just stopped cold. Smoke hissed from the hood, and when she looked in the rearview mirror, Liam was staring at her. Not scared, not sad. Just staring. And behind him, for the briefest moment, was a reflection that didn't match him. It was a man. Tall, gaunt, eyes glowing red, mouth wide open in a silent scream. Claire screamed, spun around, but there was no one there. Just Liam blinking slowly. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice perfectly calm. She told herself she was losing it. Stress, fatigue, that's all. But that night she dreamed of a forest. Black trees. A fire burning in reverse. Embers leaping back into logs. And a boy standing by a stone well, pointing down into it, smiling. She woke to the smell of smoke. Her kitchen curtains were burning. Liam stood by them, staring, unmoving. Claire yanked him back and put out the fire. Her hands shook violently. "Why were you just standing there?" "I didn't want to wake you," he said simply. "He said not to." "Who said not to?" she asked. Liam pointed behind her. "The man who followed me here." He turned. Nothing but an empty kitchen. From that moment on, she knew. Whatever she had brought back that night, it wasn't just a boy. She started seeing things. Glimpses of movement in mirrors. Shadows crawling along the ceiling. Whispers in the plumbing. Her apartment was alive with something unseen, something angry. She asked Liam again, "Where are you really from?" He looked at her with those dark eyes and said, "You saved me from dying, but he came with me. He always comes. He doesn't like to be alone." Claire's blood ran cold. "Who is he?" Liam whispered. "He's what's left of the others." That night, her neighbor Mrs. Talbot, who lived directly below her, was found dead in her bed. Mouth open, eyes black, fingers twisted like branches. The coroner ruled it cardiac arrest. Claire knew better. Liam sat on the floor that evening, humming. A song she didn't recognize. But the melody made her skin crawl. And he was drawing. She looked at the paper. It was a sketch of her building, her window, her apartment, and a tall figure standing just outside her door. The figure had no face. Just a mouth. Too wide. Too wrong. Claire grabbed the paper. "What is this?" "He watches us when you sleep," Liam said cheerfully. "He's almost ready." "Ready for what?" Liam didn't answer. He just went back to humming. That night, Claire decided she couldn't stay there. She packed a bag and told Liam they were going to a hotel. He didn't protest. But as they stepped out of the apartment, he turned back toward the door. "You shouldn't leave him here alone," Liam said. Claire froze. "He gets very lonely when he's left behind." And in that moment, Claire understood something horrifying. She hadn't saved a boy from dying. She had saved something much older. Something that wore the shape of a child to escape where it truly belonged. And in doing so, she had invited its jailer, the one who always followed. Only now, the jailer had found a new prisoner. Claire didn't stop driving until the gas gauge glowed red. The rain had returned, soaking the windshield and sheets, and each flash of lightning cracked the sky like bone. Liam sat in the back seat, humming softly to himself, rocking ever so slightly. She had asked him to sit up front, but he refused. He said the back seat was safer. She didn't ask why. They pulled into a roadside motel off Route 17, the Sleepy Pines Inn, the kind of place that hadn't updated anything since the 80s. The clerk behind the front desk was an old woman with faded tattoos and a crooked smile. She handed Claire the key to room 6 and never took her eyes off Liam. As Claire took the key, the woman leaned over the counter and whispered, "Some things ain't meant to be saved, sweetheart." Claire stared, unsure whether the woman was being metaphorical or specific. The room was damp, musty, and flickered with the soft hum of an old ceiling light. But it was far from her apartment, and from whatever had begun to nest there. She double-locked the door. Liam sat on the bed, staring at the blank TV screen, eyes wide. "Do you want something to eat?" Claire asked. He shook his head. She sat beside him, exhausted. "Liam, tell me the truth. Who is he?" "The man who came back." Liam didn't blink. "He doesn't have a name anymore. He was the first one who died in the place I came from." Claire swallowed. "What place?" He finally looked at her. "The hollow. Under the roots. Past the well." Her breath caught. The well. From her dream. "He keeps the ones who don't belong," Liam continued. "But he didn't keep me. You pulled me out." "You mean, you were dead?" Liam nodded slowly. Claire stood up, her heart pounding. "This is insane." "No," he said, voice suddenly low and cold. "What's insane is thinking you can open the door and not expect something else to come through." That night, as the wind howled and thunder shook the walls, Claire sat in bed while Liam slept, or pretended to. The room was dark but thick with presence, like something else was breathing with them. At exactly 3:07 a.m., the whispers returned. They came from inside the walls. Dozens of voices, some weeping, some laughing, others chanting things in broken, slurred words that made her skin crawl. Claire stood and pressed her ear to the wallpaper. "Give him back. Give it back. He doesn't belong with you. He's not yours." She pulled away, shaking. Her reflection in the cracked mirror across the room wasn't quite right. It was smiling, even though she wasn't. She turned the lights on. Liam sat up instantly, staring at her. "You woke him." Claire moved across the room, grabbed her bag, and started packing again. "We're leaving." "You can't run anymore," Liam said. She turned to him. "I have to get you help. Real help. I think there's something wrong. Maybe some trauma or a disorder." "He already found us," Liam interrupted. "He's inside now." Claire paused. "Inside what?" Liam looked down and whispered. "Inside me." That's when the lights burst. Every bulb in the room shattered at once, spraying sparks. The TV switched on without power, displaying only static. But behind the flicker, she could see something moving in the screen. Shape. Watching. Waiting. Claire grabbed Liam's arm and yanked him toward the door. But the handle was burning hot. She screamed and let go. Then she heard it. A voice. So deep it sounded like the earth itself groaning. She pulled what was mine. Now I take what is hers. The closet door creaked open slowly. Not with hinges but like something breathing out of it. The shadows inside stretched, spilling across the floor like ink. Liam stood frozen, staring into the darkness. "He's here." Claire pulled him back, shielding him with her arms. "Stay behind me." But the shadow grew. It rose taller than the ceiling, its face smeared with shifting mouths. Too many mouths, all whispering in unison. "Trade. Trade. Trade." Claire's vision blurred. Her head filled with screaming, voices, sobs, children crying out names she didn't know. Then a memory that wasn't hers. A forest at night, dozens of children circling a stone well, and a man nailed to a tree, screaming without sound. She collapsed to the floor. When she came to, the room was quiet. Liam was standing over her, his eyes dull. "He showed you," he said softly. Claire sat up, trembling. "What was that?" "The ones before me. The ones who weren't saved. He kept them. Until their names vanished. Then they became part of him." Claire gasped. "That's what he is." Liam nodded. "He wants me back. But he won't go unless I return." She shook her head. "No. Saved you. Brought you back. I won't let anything take you again." Liam looked at her, almost sadly. "Then he'll take you instead." Claire didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window, staring out into the empty motel lot. But something was there. Figure. Standing by the edge of the trees, just past the parking lights. Watching. Its head tilted. Lifted one hand. A single finger pointed toward the room. Toward her. By morning, Claire made a decision. They needed answers. She called an old friend. Father Ellis, a retired priest who now ran a shelter 2 towns over. He'd always had a strange sensitivity to things beyond reason. If anyone could help, he could. They drove for an hour. Liam was quiet the whole way, pale and sweating. He whispered to himself occasionally. Sometimes he just stared out the window and gripped the seat so hard his knuckles turned white. Father Ellis lived behind a small chapel surrounded by overgrown grass. He opened the door before she could knock, as if he'd been expecting them. "You found something," he said grimly. "Or something found you." Claire told him everything. Father Ellis listened, face grim, then stood and pulled a thick leather-bound book from a locked drawer. "What you saw, what's following you, is something ancient. Something that predates our idea of hell." He flipped pages and showed her a drawing. A boy climbing from a dark well, shadowed by a faceless figure behind him. The caption below read, "Those who return from the hollow never return alone." "It's not the boy that's cursed," the priest said. It's the bond you made when you pulled him out. That act, reviving something meant to die, tears a hole. Claire's hand shook. Can I fix it? Ellis closed the book. Not without sacrifice. Liam looked up, voice soft. He'll only leave when he's full. Full of what? Claire asked. Ellis hesitated. Of pain. Of memory. Of something willingly given. It's not about death. It's about the offering. Claire stared at Liam and Liam stared back. He wants me, the boy said. But he'll take you if I stay. Ellis said nothing. Claire made a choice. That night they returned to the motel. Claire had a plan. She would go back to the well. Even if it was only in dreams. Even if it meant going somewhere no one came back from. Because she couldn't let the boy suffer again. But she didn't know. He had already made his own deal. Claire hadn't planned to sleep that night. She was sure she wouldn't. How could anyone, knowing a thing made of mouths and shadows waited on the other side of dreams? But sleep took her anyway. Not gently. Dragged her. She opened her eyes to the sound of dripping water. The world around her was gray and quiet. No birds, no wind, no breath. Just the groan of roots above her and the pulsing sound of something deep beneath the earth. She stood at the edge of a forest that twisted inward like a spiral, all the trees leaning toward one place in the center. A stone well covered in moss, surrounded by child-sized graves. The air stank of rot and old breath. Claire stepped closer. Every footstep felt like it sank a little deeper. The well called to her, not with a voice but with memory. She remembered pulling Liam from it, though she had never seen it before. She remembered how cold his skin had been, how his eyes had stared not at her but through her, at something climbing up after him. She looked down into the well. It wasn't water that looked back. It was her reflection. But not her now. Her in the moment she pulled Liam out in the clinic, her hands on his chest, screaming, desperate. And behind that version of herself, the thing. Long fingers like burnt tree roots, a head made of shifting shadows, its body stitched with the faces of children. It whispered from the dark. You reached in. Now I reach out. Claire stepped back, heart hammering. Then the roots around the well moved. Slowly. Reaching for her ankles. She tried to run, but the ground caved. Fell. Down, down, down. She woke gasping. Back in the motel. But something was wrong. The light outside was dim, the kind of light that had no source. Liam was standing at the window. And he wasn't alone. His shadow was wrong, twice his size and moving independently. It leaned in as if whispering into his ear. When Claire rose from the bed, the air felt thick. But hollow. Like breathing underwater. Liam turned to her. I tried to make a deal, he said quietly. What do you mean? I told him I'd go back. I told him to leave you alone. Claire moved closer. What did he say? Liam's voice cracked. He laughed. He said he already touched you. That the hollow's in your blood now. Claire stumbled back. Her hands were trembling. That's not possible. I didn't do anything. Yes, you did, Liam whispered. You cared. That's enough for him. Suddenly the TV switched on. Again, no power. No remote. Just static. And then, through the snow of the screen, the clinic hallway. Me. The security footage from that night. Claire stepped forward, transfixed. The footage fast-forwarded itself until it showed her dragging Liam's limp body through the ER doors. Then something followed. A shape barely visible. Crawling on the ceiling. Smiling mouths. Stretched across a shapeless form. The camera flickered and twisted until the screen showed her. Sleeping in the motel bed. Stop it, Claire said, reaching to unplug it. She didn't touch the TV. Her hand met flesh. TV was breathing. She screamed and backed away. The walls began to bleed. Slow trickles of dark water leaking through the plaster. The wallpaper peeled back in long strips, revealing symbols carved beneath. Symbols that shifted when looked at directly. Liam crouched in the corner, covering his ears. He's coming through, he said. He's not waiting anymore. The door to the room creaked open. No knock. Just open. Claire didn't wait. She grabbed Liam and ran through the parking lot, past the dead-eyed front desk clerk who simply smiled and said, "Told you he'd find you." They didn't stop running until they hit the woods behind the motel. Deep in the trees, everything was wrong. The world was too still. Their footsteps made no sound. The moon above looked like a bloodshot eye, and every tree leaned toward the same direction, a clearing where the ground pulsed like a heartbeat. In the center, a well. The real one. Claire stepped toward it, breath frozen. She could feel it, something ancient and watching. The closer she came, the more she saw around its base. Bones, dolls, torn scraps of clothes, dozens of items lost and forgotten by children. Liam held her hand tightly. "This is where it started," he said. Claire knelt at the edge and peered in. Down there was not water. It was a world. Forest upside down. Skies like cracked mirrors. And at the center, a tree growing out of a mountain of screaming faces. She fell back, shaking. "He wants me to see it," she whispered. Liam nodded. "He wants you to join it." Claire looked at him, tears in her eyes. "I can't let that happen to you. Or to anyone else." Liam looked down. "He says he'll leave you alone if I climb back in." "No," she shouted. "No, Liam. You don't belong to him anymore." Liam's voice dropped. "But I don't belong here either." Claire sobbed. "You do. With me. I'll protect you." Suddenly the wind screamed. Branches whipped around them like claws. The well gurgled and frothed, and from its mouth he rose. Win. Wong. His body shimmered between child and beast, mouth and eye. The air warped around him. He didn't walk. He slithered forward without moving. His voice came from everywhere. "Trade." Claire stood between him and Liam. "You can't have him." The thing tilted its head, then reached one long hand out. It didn't grab Liam. It touched her chest, right over her heart, and she screamed. A memory flooded her. Daniel, her son, drowning again and again, her arms never reaching in time. The moment she chose to live instead of follow him into the water. The moment she tried to forget. The creature fed on it, drew it out. Trade. One for one. Liam screamed too. "He's pulling your grief out." Claire dropped to her knees, gasping as visions crashed into her. Hospital room. A funeral. A bathtub filled with her tears. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The creature recoiled, its face contorting in rage. It hissed. Smoke spilled from its body. Liam was glowing. Not with light, but with warmth. Something new. Something human. Claire looked up. The creature shrieked as Liam reached toward her and touched her shoulder. "You gave me something he can't take," he said. "Love." The creature screamed louder than anything Claire had ever heard, and with a sound like a collapsing mountain, it was pulled back into the well. Clawed. Screaming. Shattering. Until the well sealed itself with a thud. And silence. They walked back to the car, both shaking, both changed. Claire looked at the boy beside her. He was real now. Breathing. Warm. And finally smiling in a way that didn't chill her bones. But back in the forest, beneath the sealed well, crack formed. And one of the names carved on the stone. It began to fade. They didn't speak for most of the drive back. Claire's hands clutched the wheel like it was the only thing anchoring her to reality. Liam sat curled in the passenger seat, face turned toward the window, eyes unreadable. The world outside was normal. Sunlight, traffic lights, gas stations. But Claire knew that underneath it all, something had changed. They had left the forest. But the forest hadn't left them. Claire took them back to her house in the suburbs. It was modest, half forgotten, the kind of place where neighbors barely waved anymore. Since Daniel's death, she'd let the house fall into a quiet kind of disrepair. Peeling paint, overgrown lawn, shadows in the corners. She opened the door and froze. Something smelled wrong, like mold and wet copper. Liam smelled it too. He didn't say anything, but his nose wrinkled and his hand found hers. The house creaked differently. Claire checked the locks, the windows, the crawlspace under the stairs. Everything seemed in place, but that didn't mean it was. They slept fitfully that night. Claire on the couch, Liam in the guest room. At 3:07 a.m., the scratching began. Barely there. Like fingernails on wood. Claire sat bolt upright. It was coming from under the floorboards. Morning came with gray skies and silence. Claire pulled up the corner of the hallway carpet and pried open a loose floorboard, half expecting to find rats. But there was nothing. Nothing, except a small wooden block. Faded blue paint. The letter D carved into its side. Claire felt her stomach drop. That had been Daniel's. She buried it with him. She ran to the closet in the back of the hallway where she kept what little remained of her son's belongings. She hadn't opened that door in over a year. Now it stood ajar. Inside chaos. Boxes overturned. Clothing scattered. Drawings ripped. And at the very top, Daniel's favorite stuffed rabbit. Soaked in black water. Claire backed away, heart racing. She didn't call the police. How could she? Hi, yes, I think my dead son's toys are crawling out of the floor to haunt me because I rescued a ghost child from a forest demon. Instead, she sat Liam down in the kitchen. Has anything followed us? Liam stared at her a long time. Then slowly he nodded. I think they were already here. That night Claire didn't sleep. She sat by the hallway, flashlight in one hand, kitchen knife in the other. Liam slept upstairs. His room filled with nightlights and salt lines across the window and door frames. At exactly 3:07 a.m. again, the scratching started. Claire's light snapped on. This time it wasn't subtle. The floorboards buckled, groaned. Something was trying to come up. Claire stood, bracing herself as the boards cracked open, and from the darkness beneath the house, whispers spilled out. Children's voices, crying, pleading. Let us out. We're still cold. We're still hungry. Claire's breath caught in her throat. She knelt at the broken floor and shone her light inside. What she saw was impossible. Not the foundations. Not dirt and crawl space. But rooms. Dozens of them. Teeny. Wooden. Carved like miniature bedrooms with broken beds, rotted toys, and on the walls, scratches. Dozens. She pulled back and slammed the board shut. Footsteps echoed down the hall, from upstairs. Claire ran. Liam was standing in the hallway, his face pale. They're in my room. Claire burst through the door. The nightlights had all blown out. The salt was scattered. On the wall, in crayon, someone had written, "He let us starve. Now we eat you." Beneath the writing, handprints. Teeny. Dozens. All in black. Then she heard the creaking. Closet door half open. Something watching. Claire grabbed Liam and slammed the door shut behind them. They ran to the living room, breathing hard, heartbeats thundering. "I think this house is a gate," Liam whispered. "A crack." Claire nodded. "And it's opening." The next morning, Claire called someone she hadn't spoken to in years. Dr. Miriam Knox. Psychologist. Paranormal researcher. Former patient of horror herself. She arrived that evening, wearing a long coat and a face full of war scars. "You're not crazy," she said before Claire even spoke. "But you are late. These things don't wait around forever." Claire brought her in, showed her the toys, the claw marks, the secret rooms. Miriam examined them all, grim. "There are 3 forces at work here," she said. Claire frowned. 3. 1. The forest. The thing that called Liam back. He's still out there, even sealed. 2. The house. Something else happened here, something buried. And 3. She turned toward Liam. Him. Liam looked up. "I think he brought something with him," Miriam said. "Not evil. Not malicious. But connected." Liam whispered. "They whisper to me sometimes. The other kids." Claire grabbed his hand. "Can they be freed?" she asked Miriam. Miriam didn't answer right away. Finally, not without remembering who put them there in the first place. That night Claire had the dream again. The forest. The well. But this time she wasn't pulling Liam out. She was pulling Daniel. And when she brought him up, he wasn't Daniel. He was hollowed, eyeless, smiling. "You saved him," he said. "But you left me." Claire woke in a scream and found her room filled with fog. On the wall, more writing. "Trade." She ran to Liam's room. He was gone. The window was open, the salt circle broken. Miriam found her at the base of the stairs, clutching the broken window frame. "They took him," Claire whispered. Miriam knelt beside her. "Then we go where they live." Claire met her eyes. "The forest." Miriam shook her head. "No. Beneath." They returned to the hallway. The broken floor. The secret rooms. Claire pried it open again, and this time she didn't flinch. She climbed down. Miriam followed. The air was tight, cold. Not like earth but like being inside a body. Wet walls. Breathing timber. And down there the children. Dozens. Hollow. Skin pale. Whispers low. They didn't attack. They watched. One stepped forward. A girl with stitched lips and no feet. He pointed to a door. A heavy iron thing, etched with a single word. "Payment." Claire pushed it open. Inside Liam, tied to a chair. And before him Daniel, but older. His black skin waxen. Claire choked. "Daniel." The boy didn't move. Miriam held Claire back. "It's not him. It's what wears him." The not Daniel looked up. Grinned. "You only get one. You stole two. So now one must go." Claire screamed. "Take me." The boy tilted his head. "You would trade yourself." "Yes." Liam shook his head. "No, don't." Daniel moved forward and placed a single finger on her forehead. Claire collapsed, and memories poured out of her. Not her own. The children's. Locked away. Forgotten. Some starved. Some beaten. Some simply buried under floorboards like pests. Their grief was the seed. Their rage the water. Their death the offering. And the thing that grew was not Daniel. It never had been. Claire woke to Miriam dragging her out of the room. Liam stood in the doorway, free. The iron door slammed shut behind him. The girl with no feet whispered something to Liam. He nodded. They climbed out of the crawlspace. The first light in days. Claire held Liam tightly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I know," he said. "So are they." Claire turned back toward the floor and listened. For the first time in weeks. Silence. But far beneath, under a door carved in bone, Daniel sat and smiled. She thinks she chose. But the forest always collects its debts. For the first time in weeks, Claire and Liam slept through the night. No scratching. No whispering. No ghost children beneath the floors. Just a heavy, bruised silence, as if the house itself was holding its breath. By morning, the sunlight actually felt warm again. Claire made Liam a real breakfast. They sat in the kitchen, surrounded by the dull normalcy of clinking forks and the hum of the refrigerator. But the weight never fully lifted. It lingered behind their smiles. In the walls. In Liam's quiet stares toward the tree line beyond the backyard. They never spoke of the door again. The door beneath the house, carved with the word payment. They had sealed it shut with salt, iron nails, and prayer. Miriam stayed for another week, cleansing the home with rituals Claire didn't question. When she finally left, she hugged Claire hard. "Sometimes the evil that wears our loved ones doesn't come to destroy us," she said. "It comes to finish what we started, without realizing we started anything at all." 1 week later, Liam stopped speaking. Began slowly. Shorter sentences. Distant eyes. He grew colder, not just in mood but in touch. Claire noticed it first when he hugged her. His skin felt off. Like it wasn't his. She tried to reason it away. Trauma. Stress. Healing takes time. But by the second week, Liam stopped sleeping in his bed. She found him sitting in the living room, staring at the fireplace, unmoving. When she called to him, he turned slowly, eyes black around the edges. She asked him what he was doing. His voice flat. "Listening. They're almost here." Claire's heart clenched. "Who?" Liam didn't answer. But the air shifted. And then the trees began to whisper. Started on the third night. Claire was dreaming of Daniel again. But not the old dream. Not the one where he called to her from the well. In this one he was climbing out. Over and over again. Nails tearing. Skin sloughing off. And behind him others. Children. Dozens. Some faceless. Some twisted. All silent. But when Daniel reached the top of the well, he looked into her eyes. And whispered. You didn't make the trade. You delayed it. Claire woke choking. Liam was standing at the foot of her bed. His eyes were pitch black. And from his lips came Daniel's voice. The forest doesn't forget. And it doesn't forgive. Claire fled with Liam that morning. Packed a bag. Took what cash she had. Hit the road. But every highway she turned down. Every detour led her back to trees. Pines rising like sentinels. The forest always on the horizon. Watching. Waiting. The world was shrinking. And then as dusk fell, Liam spoke. He hadn't said a word in hours. Now he turned to her, eyes wide and frightened. Not possessed. Not a vessel. Just a boy. They're pulling me back, he whispered. It's not safe to run. Claire pulled over on the side of an empty road. The forest stretched out beyond the ditch, dense and dark. We beat this, she told him. We closed the door. Liam shook his head. We didn't close the first one. That night, Claire returned to the forest. The real one. The place where she first found Liam. Half dead in the roots of a tree that bled like a throat. She left the car on the roadside. Took nothing but a lantern and a knife. Liam stayed behind. He begged her not to go. But Claire couldn't run anymore. This time, she stepped past the twisted birches and knotted branches willingly. And the forest welcomed her. The moment her foot touched the moss, the wind died. The night thickened. The silence pressed against her skull like hands. And ahead, barely visible in the fog, was the well. The same one from her dreams. Only now, she saw what she had never let herself see before. The bones. Piled around the base. Teeny. Burned. Buried and uncovered again and again. Claire fell to her knees. They weren't Liam's. They weren't Daniel's. They were older. Hundreds of them. And as the truth clicked into place, the wind began to whisper. A woman emerged from the shadows. Skin like bark. Is too bright. Hair tangled with roots and teeth. She didn't speak with her mouth, but with her presence. Claire remembered her. She had met her before. Not as Claire, but as someone else. A mother. Centuries ago. Who had once traded children to the forest for favor. For power. For harvest. And that woman's soul had passed down. Bound by guilt. Reborn again and again. Claire had always been her. The woman stared at her across the well. And this time Claire didn't beg. She didn't cry. She only whispered. Take me. For real this time. No tricks. Let him go. The woman tilted her head. And the forest shuddered. Liam, miles away, woke in the car. He screamed. 'Cause he felt her go. Like a thread being snapped in his chest. He ran. Into the trees. Toward the place he had sworn never to return. The forest opened for him. And at the heart of it, he found the well. Me. Just the echo of his own breath. No bones. No fog. Just silence. And at the edge, her necklace. Claire's. Still warm. Years passed. Liam grew. Quietly. Away from cities. Away from memory. But every now and then, he'd see something in the woods. Flicker. Shadow. Sometimes when the wind was just right. He'd hear her humming a lullaby only they knew. He knew she had kept her promise. He never told anyone what happened. But in his backyard, buried under salt and stone, was a small wooden block. Faded blue paint. The letter D. He never moved it. Never touched it. And he never went near the forest line after dark. Because while he had been spared, the forest remembers. And one day, it may remember you.